Rejected police dog kept returning to one container when they opened it. The world changed forever. The morning sun had barely risen over the bustling port of Shenzhen when Max, a 7-year-old German shepherd with the customs department, began his routine inspection. His dark fur gleamed in the early light, still damp from the morning mist that clung to the port's massive containers. His handler, Officer Chinwei, watched with quiet pride as Max moved with the precision that had made him legendary among the port security teams. Chun remembered the day he'd first met Max 5 years earlier at the police dog training academy. Unlike the other shepherds, who were all eagerness and energy, Max had stood, quietly observing, his intelligent eyes taking in everything around him. The trainer had called him different, and some had worried he lacked the necessary drive, but Chun had seen something special in those watchful eyes, a depth of understanding that went beyond training. "He thinks too much," the head trainer had warned Chun. Most handlers want a dog that simply follows commands. Chan had smiled already, feeling a connection with the thoughtful shepherd. "Then he's perfect for me," he'd replied, "because I think too much too." Their early morning walks through the port had become a ritual, a quiet time before the day chaos began. Chan would talk softly to Max about everything: his worries about the increasing wildlife trafficking reports, his pride in their work together, even his concerns about his aging. Mother at home, Max would listen with those same intelligent eyes, occasionally pressing his nose into Chen's hand, as if to say, "I understand." On this particular morning, something about Max's behavior was different. The usual methodical inspection had transformed into something more urgent. Chan noticed the change immediately. The slight stiffening of Max's tail, the more pronounced arch of his neck, the way his nose worked overtime as he circled a seemingly ordinary shipping container. "He's never this agitated," Chin observed, speaking into his radio to alert his supervisor, in 5 years of partnership. He'd learned to trust Max's instincts implicitly. They'd had their share of successful busts together, illegal drugs, smuggled goods, even a human trafficking attempt. But this was different. The dog's usual calm, precision had been replaced by an almost frantic energy. "What is it, boy?" Chun whispered, moving closer to his partner. Max looked up at him with an urgency that made Chen's heart race. The shepherd's nose kept returning to a specific spot on the container, his paws scratching lightly at the metal surface. The container's manifest listed its contents as dried herbs and traditional medicines, but Chan had seen too many false manifests to take anything at face value the morning. Port workers had started to take notice, some pausing in their duties to watch. They all knew Max. He was something of a local celebrity, having been featured in the regional news several times for his exceptional detection work. When Max acted like this, something was always wrong. Chun radioed for backup while maintaining his position, one hand resting reassuringly on Max's back. The shepherd's muscles were tense under his touch, but he maintained his disciplined position, years of training keeping him focused despite his obvious agitation. As they waited, Chun thought about all the cases they'd worked together. Max had an uncanny ability to detect not just contraband, but the intention behind it. He seemed to understand that their work wasn't just about finding illegal goods, it was about protecting the vulnerable. When the backup team arrived, led by Senior Inspector Jiang Li, they approached with practiced caution. Jiang had worked with Chun and Max long enough to respect their partnership. "What's he got?" Jiang asked quietly, noting Max's intense focus. "Something different," Chin replied, describing Max's unusual behavior. "It's not like his normal contraband alerts. This is more personal." The process of opening such containers was always tense. Protocol required careful documentation and multiple witnesses. As the heavy doors creaked open, Max's agitation increased, and peculiar musty odor wafted it out. The smell hit Chen's nose, making him wince. Years of experience told him this wasn't just another smuggling case. "Something's not right here," Jiang murmured, shining his flashlight into the dimly lit interior. The beam cut through the shadows, revealing rows of neatly stacked burlap sacks, but Max's behavior became even more insistent, his whines taking on a not Chun had never heard before, almost most mournful. As the forensics team worked methodically through the container's contents, Max remained focused, his body tense but controlled. Chin noticed how his partner kept returning to certain bags as if trying to tell them something specific. Years of working together had taught Chun to read Max's subtle signals, and right now every line of the shepherd's body spoke of distress. Easy boy, Chen murmured in Mandarin, a language Max had come to understand as in early, as his German training commands. The dog briefly pressed against his leg, seeking and offering comfort simultaneously before returning to his vigilant watch over the scene. Inspector Jiang's phone buzzed continuously as higher authorities were notified. Each call seemed to bring more officials to the scene, their faces growing grimmer as the scale of the discovery became apparent. Nearly 12 tons of pangin scales, representing thousands of slaughtered animals, made this one of the largest wildlife trafficking busts in the port's history. Chun watched as Max suddenly darted to a corner of the container, pawing at several bags that looked no different from the others, following his partner's lead. Chun called over the forensics team when they carefully opened these particular sacks. They found what would break the case wide open, waterproof pouches containing documents hidden beneath the layers of scales. "This is extraordinary," breathed Senior Inspector J, carefully handling one of the documents with gloved hands. "These aren't just shipping manifests, their entire operation." Details. His eyes widened as he scanned the papers, contact lists, payment records, routes. "They've accidentally given us their whole playbook." Detective Lu Ming arrived at the scene, her presence indicating the gravity of the situation. A veteran of the Wildlife Crimes Unit with 20 years' experience, she had a reputation for turning complex cases into successful prosecutions. Chan had worked with her before and respected how she always took time to acknowledge Max's contributions. "Good work, both of you," she said, pausing to let Max sniff her hand in greeting. Before turning to the evidence, her experienced eyes quickly assessed the documents, her expression hardening. "This is bigger than we thought, much bigger," as the team began processing the scene. Cha and Max maintained their position by the container's entrance. Max's alertness never wavered. Even as hours passed, occasionally he would look up at Chun with those knowing eyes, as if to say, "There's more, keep looking." The investigation quickly expanded beyond the port. Detective Lu set up a command center in a nearby office walls, soon covered with photos and documents. Two names kept appearing in the evidence: Li Jiangho, a South Korean businessman whose import EXP business appeared legitimate on the surface, and He Weiming, a Chinese national with connections to traditional medicine suppliers. "Look at this L," said, pointing to a series of photographs found in the hidden documents. The images showed pangolin being captured in Indonesia and Malaysia, the brutal efficiency of the operation evident in every frame. Chon felt Max press against his leg as he viewed the photos, the shepherd's empathy apparent in his soft whine. "I know, boy," Chin whispered, kneeling beside his partner. "This is why we do what we do." Max's warm brown eyes met his, filled with an understanding that sometimes seemed to transcend species. They had seen many disturbing things in their years together, but something about this case felt personal to both of them. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Junior Officer Wong, reviewing the seized photographs, recognized a warehouse in the background of one image. "Sir," he called out, excitement and disbelief mixing in his voice. "This building, it's here in Shenzhen. I pass it every day on my way to work." Detective Lu quickly gathered the team. If we're right about this warehouse, we might have a chance to catch them in the ACT, she said, spreading out a map of the city. But we'll need absolute certainty before we move. Chun looked down at Max, who sat alertly at his side. What do you think, partner? Ready for some survey and work? Max's tail wagged. Once, decisively, his posture showing he was ready for whatever came next. As the team dispersed to begin planning the surveillance operation, Chun took Max outside for a brief break. In the quiet moment, away from the chaos, he reflected on how far they'd come together from their first uncertain days as partners to now when they could communicate with just a look or a gesture, you know, he said softly to Max as they watched the sun setting over the port. Sometimes I think you understand more about human nature than most people do. Max rested his head on Chen's knee, his presence a steady comfort in the face of the darkness they confronted together. The warehouse surveillance operation began immediately, with teams working in shifts to monitor all activity. Chan and Max were assigned the critical night watch, their experience with detection making them ideal for identifying suspicious movements. They worked from an unmarked van parked among other delivery vehicles, blending into the industrial landscape during their long nights of surveillance. Chun would often think back to their training days together. He remembered how Max had excelled at patience, a rare quality in young detection dogs that same patience now served them well as they watched hour after hour, waiting for the right movement at the southeast entrance. Chan whispered into his radio one particularly cold night as Max's ears perked up at the sound of an approaching truck. The shepherd's training kept him silent, but Cha could feel his partner's mounting excitement through their night vision equipment. They observed workers unloading crates with practiced efficiency. Each person has a specific role. Chin noted in his log, "This isn't some amateur operation." Max watched intently, his head tilted slightly as he tracked the movements below. Even after years of working together, Chan was still amazed by his partner's ability to focus. Detective Liu had coordinated with international authorities, building a comprehensive picture of the trafficking network. The warehouse, they discovered, was just one node in a complex web spanning several countries, but it was a crucial one, a distribution hub where buyers could inspect merchandise before making larger purchases. The breakthrough came when surveillance picked up chatter about a major meeting. Both Li and he would be present for a shipment inspection, a rare opportunity to catch the operation's masterminds together. Liu planned the raid for dawn, that crucial time when night shift workers were exhausted and day shift hadn't yet arrived, the night before the raid. Chun took Max for a longer walk than usual. "Tomorrow's going to be important, boy," he said quietly, as they walked through a nearby park. "We need to be at our best." Max looked up at him with those understanding eyes, as if absorbing the significance of the moment. At 5:43 a.m., as the first hints of sunrise painted the sky in soft pinks and greys, the raid began. Max LED the way for the tactical team, his keen nose having already indicated 12 people inside the warehouse. Years of training in detecting both wildlife products and human presence made him an invaluable asset for the operation. "Police, don't move!" The shouts echoed through the warehouse as doors burst open from multiple entry points. The element of surprise worked perfectly. Most of the workers were caught completely off guard. Max and Chan were with the team that secured the main storage area, where they found row upon row of shelves filled with pangolin scales and other illegal wildlife products. The scene that unfolded was controlled chaos, but Max remained focused, leading Chan through the warehouse with purpose. Several workers attempted to flee, but were quickly apprehended by the waiting perimeter teams. In a back office, Li was caught trying to delete files from a computer, while he was discovered attempting to escape through a hidden door behind a false wall. But Max wasn't finished. Even as the suspects were being secured, he began indicating something beneath the floorboards. In the office, his behavior was intense but precise. This wasn't just residual scent from the trafficking operation. This was something specific. When officers pried up the boards, they discovered a hidden compartment containing documents, phones, and several USB drives, crucial evidence that would help unravel the entire network. "Good boy, Max," Chin prayed, softly watching. As his partner continued to search methodically through the space, the most heart-wrenching discovery came when Max LED'd them to a small room at the back of the warehouse. His behavior changed noticeably, becoming more gentle, more cautious. Inside, they found 3 live pangolin in a makeshift cage, clearly kept as samples for potential buyers. The animals were in terrible condition, stressed and malnourished. Chun watched as wildlife rescue experts gently removed the pangolin, noticing how Max sat quietly nearby. His eyes never leaving the animals over their years together, Chan had seen his partner display remarkable sensitivity toward rescued animals, as if he understood the importance of remaining calm and non-threatening. The weeks following the raid transformed the Quiet Customs team into the center of an international media storm. The scope of the evidence recovered from the warehouse led to simultaneous arrests across 6 countries, exposing corruption at multiple levels of the shipping industry. Through it all, Chan worked to shield Max from too much attention, knowing his partner preferred the quiet focus of their regular duties. However, Max's story caught the imagination of the public in an unexpected way. Here was a former shelter dog, once considered too contemplative for police work, who had helped uncover one of the largest wildlife trafficking operations in Asian history. The German Shepherd's journey from unwanted puppy to wildlife protection hero resonated with people around the world. The real impact of Max's discovery goes far beyond this single case, Detective Liu explained during a press conference, while Max sat calmly at Chen's feet, seemingly unaware of the cameras focused on him. "The documents and digital evidence we recovered have given us unprecedented insight into how these trafficking networks operate. We're now better equipped to stop them before more animals suffer." The 3 rescued pangolins became symbols of hope at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Chon often brought Max to visit them, noting how his partner seemed to understand the need for gentle, quiet movements around the traumatized animals. The youngest pangolin, nicknamed Lucky by the rescue team, showed particular resilience, and something remarkable began to develop. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Yang, the lead wildlife veterinarian, remarked one day. "Usually pangolins are extremely shy around dogs, but Lucky actually seems to recognize Max." "Watch this." As they observed, Lucky approached the front of his enclosure whenever Max appeared. Showing none of the fear typically associated with his species, Chon would sit for hours with Max, watching the Pang's recovery progress. "See how far they've come," he would say, scratching behind Max's ears. The shepherd would sit quietly, head tilted, seeming to understand the importance of their recovery. The Wildlife Center staff were amazed at how the pangolin appeared to recognize Max, showing no fear of the dog who had helped save them, the trial of Lee, and he became a landmark case in wildlife crime prosecution. Chan and Max attended every day, their presence a steady reminder of how the case began. The evidence was overwhelming. Detailed ledgers, digital records, and surveillance footage painted a picture of a sophisticated criminal enterprise that had operated with impunity for years. During the proceedings, Max's role became a central focus. Defense lawyers tried to dismiss the initial discovery as luck, but expert testimony about the sophisticated training and capabilities of detection dogs helped establish the legitimacy of the evidence. The judge in particular seemed impressed by the detailed documentation of Max's training and his proven track record The sentencing hearing was emotional. Victim impact statements came, not just from conservation organizations, but from communities in Africa and Southeast Asia, where pangolin populations had been decimated. Chun watched as Max listened to each speaker, his ears moving to track their voices, seeming to understand the gravity of the moment. The judge's sentence was unprecedented, entered 15 years in prison for each kingpin and massive fines earmarked specifically for wildlife conservation efforts. This case, the judge noted in her remarks, reminds us that sometimes the smallest and most vulnerable among us find protection from unexpected guardians. The case's impact rippled through the international community. Shipping companies, stung by the revelations of corruption, implemented stricter verification procedures. Several ports adopted what became known as the MAX protocol, a comprehensive system of checks and balances designed to catch wildlife smuggling attempts. The warehouse itself underwent a transformation rather than let it stand as a reminder of cruelty. Authorities converted it into a wildlife crime education center, a special exhibit dedicated to Max and other working animals in law enforcement became its centerpiece. A life-sized statue of the German Shepherd stands at the entrance, capturing his characteristic alert but gentle expression. Chin noticed changes in Max too. While the Shepherd maintained his quiet efficiency during their port duties, he seemed to have gained an even deeper sense of purpose. His attention to wildlife shipments became even more focused, as if he understood that each container they checked could mean the difference between life and death for endangered animals. 1 year after the raid, Chun found himself addressing a new class of wildlife detection, dog handlers, with Max sitting attentively by his side. The most important lesson we learned, he told them, wasn't about search techniques or evidence handling. It was about trust. Trust in your partner's instincts, trust in their heart, and trust in the bond you share. 2 years after the historic raid, Chan stood at the podium of the newly established International Wildlife Protection Training Center, Max faithfully by his side. Though grey now touched his partner's muzzle, Max's eyes remained as bright and focused as ever. Below them, 20 handler and dog teams from across Asia listened intently, each hoping to learn from the partnership that had changed wildlife protection forever. People often ask me what made Max different. Chan addressed the audience, his hand resting gently on Max's back. The truth is, it wasn't just his exceptional nose or his training, it was his heart. Every detection dog has the ability to find contraband, but Max understood why we were looking. The success of their case had revolutionized wildlife protection training. The methods developed during their pangolin case had become standard protocol, but more importantly, the selection criteria for detection dogs had changed. Training centers now looked for dogs like Max, the thoughtful ones, the watchers, the ones who might have been overlooked before. Lucky, the rehabilitated pangolin had become an ambassador for his species under the care of dedicated wildlife experts. He had transformed from a terrified trafficking victim into a confident animal who helped educate the public about wildlife conservation. Scientists studying the rescued pangolins made remarkable discoveries about their intelligence and social behavior, information that proved invaluable for conservation efforts. Chan and Max regularly visited the rehabilitation center, where their presence had become a source of comfort, not just for the animals, but for the staff as well. It's like he knows exactly how to behave with each animal. One of the caretakers observed, watching Max gentle his movements around a newly rescued pangolin. He's teaching us as much as we're teaching others. The impact of their case continued to ripple. Outward shipping companies, stung by the revelations of corruption, implemented stricter verification procedures. Several ports adopted what became known as the MAX protocol, a comprehensive system of checks and balances designed to catch wildlife smuggling attempts. The protocol wasn't just about increased security. It included training staff to recognize signs of trafficking and establishing clear channels for reporting suspicious activities. Perhaps the most touching legacy came in the form of letters and drawings sent to Max from children around the world. The story of a loyal dog helping to save endangered animals had captured imaginations and inspired a new generation of wildlife defenders. Chun kept a bulletin board covered with this artwork in their office, and he noticed how Max would often sit and study the pictures as if understanding his role in inspiring others as Max approached retirement age. Chun noticed his partner slowing down but never losing his dedication. They spent more time training younger dogs with Max, seemingly taking pride in demonstrating proper search techniques to his successors. Even more remarkable was how the veteran shepherd seemed to identify which dogs had special potential, often paying particular attention to the quieter, more thoughtful ones. "He's choosing his success, professors," Detective Lou remarked one day, watching Mars work with a young Belgian Malinois who had initially been considered too reserved for the program. He sees himself in them. The final tally of their case's impact was impressive: over 50 arrests across 3 continents, the disruption of multiple trafficking routes, and a significant decrease in pangolin smuggling through Asian ports. But for Chun, the real measure of success could be seen in the thriving pangolins at the rehabilitation center. And in Max's continued dedication to their work, on Max's last official day of duty, the port authorities organized a special ceremony. Representatives from wildlife organizations worldwide came to honor the dog who had helped change the face of wildlife crime prevention. Max accepted the attention with his usual quiet dignity, though his tail wagged especially hard when presented with a large bone. Chen's speech that day moved many to tears. "Some say animals don't understand the impact of their work," he said, his hand resting on Max's head. "But I've watched this dog comfort trafficking victims, guide younger dogs, and show us all what dedication truly means. Max didn't just find evidence, he found a way to show us our own humanity." Today, visitors to the Wildlife Protection Training Center are greeted by 2 statues, one of a proud German shepherd in his prime, and beside it, a smaller statue of a pangolin looking up at the dog who helped save its species. The plaque below reads to Max, who reminded us that heroes come in all species and that the smallest among us deserved the greatest protection. Chun retired from active duty the same day as Max, but they didn't stop their work entirely. They became special advisors to the training center, where Max's legacy continues to inspire new generations of wildlife detection teams. Even in retirement, Max maintained his gentle dignity and sense of purpose, showing that the heart of a protector never truly retires. In the end, their story became more than just a successful wildlife trafficking case. It became a testament to the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful advocates for nature's vulnerable creatures come in unexpected forms. Max's legacy lives on in every detection dog team that takes up the mission of wildlife protection, and in the hearts of all who learn his story